It's Judgment Day for the Ziggart kids. A ceremony to show their mana, purity, and elemental attribute. The result decides if they have the talent to bear the name of the world's greatest sword masters and aura users. When the first boy steps to the giant stone sword, it flares with a green aura, showing his wind attribute and above-average mana purity. Next, a girl makes the sword shine with an even better blue aura, and everyone cheers for another family prodigy. At last, it's Rayon's turn, and the family patriarch calls him forward. He touches the sword, and it gives off a faint white aura. This is seen as the weakest of all, and others start laughing, but the patriarch shuts them down and ends the ceremony fast. When only he and his servant are left in the hall, something bizarre happens. The sword erupts again, this time with a blazing golden fire aura. The same power as the Ziggart founder, so strong it can melt anything. The patriarch is stunned, deciding to watch Rayon's personal level-up manhwa unfold. But even the patriarch doesn't know Rayon's real story. He's the Reborn's strongest assassin, betrayed by his own master. On a frigid night, the Shadow Group's top assassin meets his master, Daryus Robert. It seems the master discovered Rayon broke free from his control. House Robert turns kids into puppets, and Rayon only escaped their mind shackle by chance. When Rayon asks how he found out, Daryus explains, every assassin has two shackles, one for the mind, and another one. Just then, a sharp pain blasts Rayon's chest as Daryus reveals the second shackle, a rage worm implanted inside their bodies. It's a curse that devours its target's heart on command. As it eats his heart, he vows he won't go down like a dog and will at least mark Daryus. He forces himself up and charges, only to be instantly taken out. Even so, Daryus is shocked. Rayon actually managed to wound him. He orders the other assassins to get rid of the dead dog and leaves. Rayon's fading mind burns with rage for the life Daryus stole. With his last breath, he begs any god or demon for a shot at revenge. On cue, a trinket on his neck glows and a screen says he's been chosen by an entity named Wrath. Unfortunately, before Wrath could finish downloading, his body expired, cutting the process short. Talk about bad timing. Sometime later, a young woman plays with her baby boy. She's nicknamed Sunshine. Her new baby happens to be Rayon. He's been reincarnated into the family of this woman, Sylvia, but still has all his assassin memories, making this whole situation unbelievable. He'd thought it was just a dream, but eventually had to accept reincarnation when he realized this was a nightmare he wasn't waking from. His new mother playfully babbles, trying to tell him the lord of the house has yet to return and give him a proper name. Little does she know, he understands everything. To Rayon, it's taking forever. He's been a baby for about 100 days already. It's obvious to Rayon he was born into a rich and prestigious family. For him, this is a huge advantage, as he'll need all the resources he can get for his revenge on Daryus. Since he hasn't left the building, he has no clue where he is or his family status. To make matters worse, he's been unable to master his flame techniques. So, taking revenge on Daryus is on the back burner. Just then, a maid named Helen bursts in, informing Lady Sylvia that the Lord has returned. The lady frantically tries to prepare, but it's too late, as the Lord is already walking through the main door. This guy radiates a powerful aura, and Rayon recognizes him instantly. Since Sylvia calls him father, this must be his new grandfather. From his features, Rayon knows this is none other than Glenn Ziggart, the Northern Lord of Destruction. What a wild level-up manhwa, the top dog of the entire continent. He's apparently been reincarnated into the country's most powerful family. Eventually, Lord Glenn names the baby Rayon, the same name from his past, and tells him to lay low as if he doesn't exist. Later that night, Rayon, who's been sidelined by nap-time ambushes and playing with Sylvia, is thrilled to finally get alone time at night to cultivate his flame links. Most basic cultivation techniques on the continent involve inhaling mana from nature and storing the aura in one's core. Meanwhile, the flame links are a whole different beast, creating circular links around his heart to boost stamina, focus, and mana affinity. This makes it the perfect cultivation technique for warriors. It also has the perk of staying undetected by powerhouses like Daryus. All that's left is to power up with flame links and learn the Ziggart sword technique. This will make his revenge plan against Daryus rock solid. There's just one tiny problem. The mana circuits in his new body are filled with a destructive, icy chill. After finding about 9 circuits are blocked, it's clear he's on a fast track to an early grave. His only option is to break through the blocked circuits using his flame links. After training for a while, our little guy gets woozy and soon faceplants right onto the bed. losing another hopeless fight against sleep. It's lucky he conked out, as Lord Glenn enters to check on the baby and releases some of his aura. The next morning, our boy is back on baby duty. He's got the tough-as-nails job of crawling a bit farther each day to impress his mother, and it's super frustrating to pretend to be a baby when he's a grown man on the inside. This is not the level-up Manhwa he envisioned. The poor guy would rather suffer the killer chills than be babied for another minute. Before long, Lady Sylvia receives an important visitor, a family friend Rayon recognizes as the Ragged Saint. From Rayon's memory, the saint's divine power and medical smarts are beyond mortal comprehension, and he's widely known as the most renowned healer on the continent. After they exchange pleasantries, the Ragged Saint warmly tells Sylvia he came to check on her after hearing she had a child. He says the baby looks just like her, with cute features unlike his grumpy grandpa. When the saint learns Lord Glenn named the baby Rayon, which means shadow, he gets annoyed and wonders what the man was thinking. His tone makes it clear there's an informal history between Lord Glenn and the Ragged Saint, and this confirms old rumors Rayon heard about their friendship. After checking Rayon's health, the Ragged Saint reveals to Sylvia that the child has a condition called the Curse of Bitter Frost. Apparently, a chill is blocking his mana circuits, and it's unlikely he'll ever become a swordsman. He also might not live much longer if left untreated. Shocked, Sylvia refuses to believe the saint. He just ignores her protest and promises to bring medicine for the child. A maid then enters, informing the saint the Lord wishes to speak with him. After the saint leaves, Rayon is relieved he finally has a name for his condition. He starts planning how he's going to tackle it, but he's taken aback by a tear that falls from his mother's face onto his. When he looks up, he sees his mother weeping, protesting that it can't be true. Eventually, she gets fired up and tells the baby she refuses to let him die. For the first time in ages, Rayon feels a strange sensation in his heart that he hasn't felt before. As he wonders what's come over him, he realizes he's unhappy because he hates seeing Sylvia cry. Trying to show his sympathy, he extends his hand to wipe her tears and calls her Mama for the first time. That was the final straw, and Lady Sylvia forces her way into the room where the Lord and the Saint are talking. Despite the maid's protests, her abrupt entrance angers the Lord, but she bows down, begging him to save Rayon's life. For a moment, Sylvia continues her plea to Lord Glenn, but all she gets is an ice-cold shutdown. That saving a boy who can't be a warrior is pointless. When Sylvia reminds him that's his grandson, he doubles down and orders the guards to haul her off. After the guards drag her out, the shabby saint calls the Lord a stubborn old fool, later revealing the Lord was just as harsh with his daughter. Even after he'd summoned the saint for this exact issue, Lord Glenn just stonewalls him and demands the report. The saint explains the boy's mana circuits are totally blocked, and it's dangerous if he's left to grow like that. Rayon's fine for now, since Lord Glenn's aura pushed back the chill that night, but this won't help him become a warrior. Then, in a bizarre twist, the Lord says none of that matters, as long as the boy lives. The saint taunts him, saying his tough guy act is just hiding a deep love for his grandson, then asks why he'd pick a name meaning shadow. Glenn says the name meant the complete opposite, ages ago. Days later, Sylvia gives Rayon the elixir the saint left for him. Our boy is thrilled to get a fire-based elixir, knowing it'll help him fight the chill in his mana circuits. More years fly by, and Rayon turns 5 years old. A system notification then alerts him he's completed his second flame link. This boosts his soul rank, mana, affinity, focus, and stamina. The news is sweet music to his ears. He figures his fast progress is thanks to these system messages, like a personal level-up Manhwa system that only he can see. It lets him check his status at a glance. His only gripe is that his lousy stamina and the curse haven't improved much. Even after hitting his second link, he's only gotten this far thanks to the elixir and the love from his mom and their maid, Helen. He's also worried he's not progressing fast enough. But then he remembers he's only 5 years old, with time to prepare. He was the greatest assassin in his past life, and with this flame cultivation technique, his flaws should be no problem, especially once he masters the Ziggart swordsmanship style. He knows patience is his best weapon for taking out Daryus, one of the continent's strongest transcendent beings, and losing himself to revenge would be a dumb move. Soon after, his mom brings him fresh clothes because they have a special place to go. It's the day of the discernment ceremony. To explain, you need to know the continent's balance is maintained by 6 lords and 5 demons. Rayon just so happened to be reborn into the house of one of those 6 lords. The lords are the good guys, the demons threaten peace. The ceremony's purpose is to sort the studs from the duds, and today it's House Ziggart's turn. Upon reaching the venue, Everyone in the hall glares at Sylvia and her son with pure contempt, whispering awful things and calling her a failure. Some even protest that a failure's child shouldn't be allowed in the ceremony. But Sylvia just walks on, ignoring them. The words sting Rayon, but his mom tells him to focus on her. Moments later, the Lord arrives the first time Rayon has seen him in 5 years. He takes his seat, and a huge sword, the Sword of Discernment, drops into the chamber's center. The Lord orders the ceremony to begin. The discernment sword is special. It can read the full mana potential of anyone who rests their hands upon it. First up is a kid from the Ziggart family, some guy named Warren. They do these ceremonies on young kids because their skulls begin to fuse around age 4, which is when their mana potential gets locked in. The whole point of the ceremony is to discover the kid's potential in the family line. Once Warren places his hands on the sword, everyone praises him as the sword's light pours from every inch in top quality, which they say is expected of Lord Karen's son. Next up, another kid named Runan, Sorn of the vassal house of Slurn, is called. You see, the mana's purity determines how much light the sword gives off, and the mana's most suitable element also appears. When Runan takes her test, she's also hailed a prodigy for her bright results, expected of a Sorn, they say. To Rayon, it's obvious this crowd is obsessed with results, but he figures his own won't be great since his mana circuits are still chilled, even though he just managed his second flame link. When Rayon's called, people shoot him nasty glares as he walks out with his mother. Once they reach the sword, Rayon figures it's best not to have high expectations. He just needs to find out what element is good to train with. When Rayon puts his hand on the sword, a strange fire erupts, mesmerizing him. Suddenly, he sees visions of several nasty monsters and a young warrior among them. He watches intently, confused about what this vision even means, as the monsters in his vision tower over the young warrior. Suddenly, the warrior raises a fiery sword and slams it on the ground. The resulting explosion from that single move engulfs the entire area, obliterating everything in sight. After that happens, Rayon snaps back to reality and sees the element on the sword. For some reason, it's showing something different than what he saw in his vision. A bright light shines from the sword, but it barely reaches the middle. The crowd mocks his pitiful light, but Lord Glenn just watches in silence. Sylvia, being a good mom, tells Rayon he did a great job, and they return to their seats. Meanwhile, the people snicker to themselves about how a Ziggart descendant could have such a low level. They also start making fun of Sylvia, saying the only things he got from her were blonde hair and crimson eyes. Lord Glenn then tells the crowd to shut their traps, asking why they're causing a ruckus. Once they quiet down, the Lord declares the ceremony is over. When everyone leaves, Lord Glenn and his personal butler are left alone with the sword. To Lord Glenn, it seems nothing can be done about Rayon's situation. Suddenly, a brilliant fire erupts from the sword, grabbing Lord Glenn's attention. The fire engulfs the sword, reaching a peak unlike anything seen during the ceremony. Lord Glenn watches, captivated, noticing the light is as golden as the sun. From a nearby record, he confirms such a light has only ever appeared once, during the founder of House Ziggart's ceremony, erupting with an aura that could melt the demon realm's flames. Apparently, this gold-colored mana has only shown up once in House Ziggart's history. So, seeing it now is a total shock. After watching the blindingly beautiful light for a moment, the Lord realizes Rayon is the one responsible for this. But it makes absolutely no sense. 7 years later, Rayon's stats are displayed. Like in some level-up Manhwa, he's still cursed. Terrible stamina, poor athletic ability, and poor mana affinity. But hey, he's gained some water resistance, which helps the stiffness in his hands and feet. It looks like he's also pretty close to finishing his third flame link, and he is now 12 years old. Sometime later, his mother reminds him they're supposed to go to that day's discernment ceremony. Given his past experience, our boy is not exactly thrilled to go, knowing he'll have to deal with those jerks again. Soon after they arrive, the ceremony for the new kids is completed. To Rayon, this year's ceremony feels a lot faster than usual. Before it's over, the Lord calls out to Rayon, asking why he ignored a month's worth of summons for basic house training. Of course, Rayon knows nothing about any basic training, so his mother answers for him. Turns out, she got the summons, but conveniently forgot to tell him. She begs the Lord, saying Rayon isn't a normal kid and the training would be too much due to the frost in his body. Her plea totally fails, as the Lord insists they're on Ziggart land, where there are no exceptions for the family name, and refusal isn't an option. From Lord Glenn's perspective, even those who can't walk must crawl to training, because that's the Ziggart way. utterly shocked by his words. The lady says she can't accept those terms, and the Lord asks if she plans on leaving the house again. He states they follow Ziggart rules on Ziggart land, or they can get out, like sharks to blood. The talk of Sylvia leaving again gets the onlookers buzzing about how she abandoned the house. As usual, Rayon isn't happy seeing his mom get trashed. From their whispers, it's obvious why they hate her. She left the family. She didn't just walk out. She wrecked her core and mana circuits after learning the Ziggart sword style. And that's why she has no aura. She did all that just to marry the man of her dreams. But he died soon after she got pregnant with Rayon. After that tragedy, she had no choice but to crawl back home. Upon returning, the family treated her like dirt for throwing away her place. But despite all this, Rayon knows he can't join in on dissing her. He's her son and hates seeing her treated this way. Then, all of a sudden, the kid steps forward to speak with the Lord, ignoring his mother's protests. He tells the Lord he's ready to join the training next month, just as ordered. His acceptance is immediately challenged by one Daryus Ziggart, the head of the Palace of Elders, who's sitting nearby. Denier objects, saying he didn't know about this, and warns Rayon not to underestimate basic training just because of its name. Rayon insists, even saying he'll do the training to honor the Ziggart name. That's the part the Lord hates, because the Ziggart name carries some serious weight. Lord Glenn unleashes a powerful aura at him, strong enough to crush his bones and make him cough up blood. Rayon realizes this crushing pressure is even stronger than his old master Daryus's, and he clenches his fist in pain to endure it. When he finally collapses, his mother and the maid Helen rush to his side. Denier also pleads with the Lord to pull back his spiritual force, saying Rayon's just a kid who doesn't get the weight of his words. Their pleas are ignored as the Lord tells them to let him speak. Sylvia keeps begging, explaining her son is in no condition for training, and begs him to withdraw his aura. Rayon, still held in his mother's arms, remembers living in darkness in his past life as an assassin. He was always hidden in the shadows, his presence a secret. A wave of frustration makes him break free from his mom, determined to forge a better life. Like a hero in a level-up manhwa, another motivation is his strong desire to restore Sylvia's place in the family. Again, he faces the Lord and admits his ignorance of the Ziggart name, especially since he grew up in the annex, not the main house. He declares he'll join the training to find out just what this family is all about, a deep responsibility to Sylvia, Helen, and everyone in the annex who helped him fuels his defense before the Lord. Intrigued, the Lord asks if he really plans to judge the Ziggart name based solely on their basic training. Rayon confirms it seems to be the only way he has. In response, Lord Glenn promises to tell the instructor to give him his best, so Rayon won't be disappointed. The Lord's heavy aura slams into Rayon again, and he staggers to the ground. All he's thinking is how to fuse his past life as an elite assassin with the power of the flame rings to finally stand tall here. Even while on the floor, he swears he'll prove the pebble they scorned is tougher than they could ever imagine. Meanwhile, over at one of the training centers, Ziggart, head of the Palace of Warriors, asks a guard about the bad intel he got on Rowan, being basically an invalid. The guard reaffirms it, saying maids in the annex overheard the Ragged Saint and Lord Ziggart discuss the boy's serious illness. To Karun, it was clear the boy wasn't in top shape when he saw him, but none of that explains how he withstood the Lord's aura during the discernment ceremony just now. He considers that Sylvia's potential was off the charts, which might explain her son. Karun then orders the maids to slip a spy into the annex to monitor everything. Meanwhile, Rayon is overworking himself as usual, and his mother hits him with a classic, "I told you so." Sometime later, the 5th Ziggart training grounds get a visit from Lord Glenn, who's there to see the instructor, Lemaire. He finds Lemaire pretending to be asleep. After forcing him up, the two old friends start bickering back and forth. Lord Glenn says, Lemaire hasn't matured one bit in 50 years. And he's right. Since Lemaire is an elf and doesn't age like humans, Lemaire suspects the Lord is here about his grandchild, flatly stating his mother was just here and he's not easing up on the training, since Lord Glenn gave him total control there. He's shocked the Lord didn't come to plead for his grandchild, but to ask him to keep or raise the standard to weed out anyone not worthy of the training. In Lemaire's opinion, Lord Glenn is only doing this because he deeply loves his grandson, trying to show the love he never could with Sylvia. In response, Lord Glenn says if they weren't comrades, he'd have had him decapitated for that. After their chat, Lord Glenn leaves. This leaves Lemaire wondering what all the fuss is about this Rayon kid. Meanwhile, Rayon has just completed his 3rd flame link, upgrading his body and soul rank. constitution, dexterity, mana affinity, focus, and stamina, and bumping his water resistance to 3 stars. Another sweet perk is that one strand of the Curse of Frost has completely disappeared. The message makes him ecstatic. It's clear his hard work paid off. The magical status window is also accelerating his growth, like in a level-up manhwa. All this is still just a warm-up for the Ziggart training. This 3-star flame link is merely a solid foundation for the house he will build. His plan is to put on such a show that all his mockers will be silenced forever, and then take out Daryus Robert, his arch-nemesis. Deep in thought, his mother comes to speak with him late at night. As he leaves for basic training the next day, she asks if he truly must go. Afraid he'll keep pushing himself while in pain until he gets seriously hurt during training, she suggests he wait just 1 more year, but Rayon says he absolutely can't. His reason is he can't stand seeing the main and branch families look at her with contempt and treat the annex folks so poorly, and he believes he can end it all if he just excels at the training. His mother is touched and surprised by his thoughtfulness. To explain their situation, she tells him how she fell in love with his father by chance on a mission, but being with him was hard because he was an ordinary knight. To chase love, she destroyed her core and mana circuits, and left her family. It turns out Rayon had an older sister named Sia while they lived peacefully. Then, a group called the Cadre of Eden recognized Sylvia and ambushed them. Since she was pregnant and their father wasn't that strong, there was nothing they could really do. She watched her family get taken down before her very eyes. Right before a secret team her father sent for her protection saved her, arriving too late, but her husband and daughter were already gone when they arrived. Since it was too dangerous to be alone, she had to return home, becoming the scapegoat of House Ziggart. When she got back, she had no excuses for her father. Once her story ends, all Rayon hears is that she selfishly ditched her family responsibilities for her own happiness, only to come back to save her own skin. He gets why the Ziggarts treat her like dirt, but to him, she's the woman who gave him life, and the first to show him love. In 2 lifetimes, this is his first mom, so he can't just treat her like the others. Out of the blue, he asks if she regrets leaving, and she says no. Apparently, she felt invisible as a Ziggart, and only felt like a person after leaving, which was enough. She says she was happy then, and is happy to have him now. Her only regret, she says, is not being a good enough mother, but Rayon assures her it's fine. She doesn't have to worry anymore. Suddenly, Sylvia bursts into tears, and a confused Rayon has to comfort her. After he finally calms her down, he heads to his room to check his flame links before basic training tomorrow. While he's inspecting the flame links, a strange phantom suddenly appears in his room. The being declares it's time, announcing it arrived when his boiling rage reached them. Turns out, this thing is Wrath, the second ruler of the demon world, here to grant revenge after sensing a powerful rage. As Wrath states his terms requiring Rayon's body and soul, he's startled to realize he was summoned by a kid. Rayon is just as shocked, and they question each other. Wrath is sure a kid couldn't have the rage needed. This isn't some level-up manhwa, but a closer look quickly changes his demonic mind. Wrath accepts the kid and demands his soul as payment for revenge. To Wrath's utter surprise, Rayon rejects his help, saying he'll get revenge with his own hands. He wants to enjoy taking Daryus's head. The being's tone shifts, stating this is not a negotiation. Apparently, the demon world has already decided, and Wrath is just going to take what he wants. In a frenzy, the entity surrounds him in cold fire and rushes him like a maniac, trying to possess his body. The impact of the intrusion starts to freeze our boy's body and mind. As an incentive, the spirit informs him they can obliterate any of his foes, even a god, once he accepts them and lets their rage build inside. Thanks to his water resistance, he's able to withstand the chill somewhat, but the being is attacking with more than just cold. It seems to be amplifying his own rage from within. The spirit taunts Rayon, saying they'll crush skulls and devour flesh if he surrenders his body. But Rayon worries if he can keep Sylvia and the maids safe with it inside him. Wrath eventually gets impatient, stating he was trying to limit the damage to the body since he'll be using it. But now he's tired of playing games, so he'll just devour him. The increased pressure makes Rayon feel like he'll shatter into a million pieces, and his body starts to reach its limit. Right before he breaks, he gets a brilliant, classic level-up manhwa idea. Use the flame links to reduce the burden. Since it's his only way to survive, our boy activates his flame link, and a bright light erupts from his body, shocking the spirit. It gets angrier that a human child can withstand its pressure, and Rayon repeats that he'll get revenge himself. He won't give his body to some specter. Wrath becomes livid, hearing our boy call him a specter, and demands to know why he'd disrespect a ruler of the demon world. Rayon snickers that he's some demon, unable to even defeat him, which just infuriates the being more. On second thought, Rayon realizes Wrath can't use his full strength because he just woke up. Exactly as he said. Suddenly, a screen appears, informing Rayon of a new, unknown skill being unlocked. The appearance of the system window enrages Wrath even more, who screams that the system is his power and his creation. Rayon asks the entity if the message and status windows are his doing, and it confirms it created the system. Rayon prods further, trying to find out why the system was made, but Wrath gives nothing away. The being finally overshares when Rayon asks if the system was made just to speed up growth. Rayon realizes the spirit can't hide its emotions, which is pretty on brand for a creature named Wrath. Apparently, the Flamelink's effects are stronger now because that's its purpose, speeding up growth. Just like in a classic level-up manhwa, when Wrath demands he either hand over his body or return the system, Rayon throws a mana-packed punch, but even that does nothing. When Wrath sees that subduing the boy is futile, he wraps himself around Rayon's hand, transforming into a bracelet, since it hasn't been long since the seal broke, and his true power hasn't returned. His plan is to just wait patiently for his power to come back, so he can take his rightful place. Rayon considers just taking the bracelet off, but it seems like a bad idea, as it might make the system disappear or let the spirit harm Sylvia or Helen. To him, it seems much smarter to keep the spirit nearby to control him as he grows. Rayon also asks Wrath why on earth he'd become a flowery bracelet. Wrath insists it's his personal preference, and that Rayon just has to respect it. The next day, Lady Sylvia is a nervous wreck about Rayon leaving the house, and Helen comforts her. When Rayon steps out, ready to go, a look of gloom is all over their faces. Before leaving, Helen reminds Rayon not to overdo it, and he promises he'll be careful. After moping for a bit, Sylvia finally tells Rayon to do his best and sends him on his way. Once he leaves, Sylvia looks to Helen for some assurance that her baby boy will be all right. The maid reminds her that Rayon's health has improved so much he might just complete the whole training. Her words bring comfort to Sylvia, who had been sobbing inside, while Rayon promised he wouldn't overwork himself or get hurt. Shortly after, several kids gather at the 5th training grounds entrance, chatting amongst themselves. Meanwhile, Rayon keeps to himself, observing how it's not just members of the main and branch families on the training ground, but also vassal families and even outsiders who got recommendations. Before long, some boys start gossiping about Rayon's scrawny limbs, joking about why he doesn't just run home. They even make fun of his flowery bracelet, and Wrath becomes absolutely furious. The spirit starts raining down curses on the boys, but they're lucky they can't see or hear him at all. Overhearing their trash talk, Rayon walks up and asks why they don't say it to his face instead of whining like mosquitoes. They're surprised, but they immediately get defensive, questioning why a branch family kid who was locked in the annex would talk to them like that. The funny thing is, they're also from the branch family, so it's a mystery where they get the nerve to ask why he dares speak to them. When he points out that you only talk down to people you think are beneath you, the boys get even angrier, and one grabs Rayon's shirt, reminding him to know his place. A wild look flashes across Rayon's face as he starts to crack his knuckles, only for another kid from the main family to stop them. The boy is Glenn Ziggart, the prodigy tested right before Rayon in his first discernment ceremony. Warren chews the boys out for their behavior, asking if they plan to make the family a laughingstock in front of the invited outsiders. The boys immediately back off and apologize to Warren, picking up right where they left off. Warren walks up to Rayon and asks if he still doesn't know his place. He boasts that Rayon is just dust he can sweep away in his own level-up manhwa. He then warns Rayon to lay low, or he'll get booted from the annex too. In Warren's mind, Rayon's only on the training grounds because he lucked out in the discernment chambers, not because he has any actual skill. To him, he's just a failure waiting to get tossed from training. As the boys leave, Warren tells Rayon to beat it if he's not going to train, since he won't pass anyway. But before Warren can bounce, Rayon claps back that he should have put more passion into that garbage he just spewed. He reminds him that being main family means squat. He has no rank. He's not a trainee, and he can't do a thing to him. He jokes his only move is to go cry to daddy, and Warren's face turns beet red. All he can sputter out is the usual, "How dare you?" before instructor Lemaire busts the door open to address the students. Lemaire finds it hilarious they're already brawling before the official fight. Rayon, having no clue who the instructor was, recognizes him as the legendary Sword of Light, who'd retired after his core got wrecked. Lemaire breaks up the boys, telling them to save the fighting for after the admission ceremony. At the ceremony, Lemaire introduces himself to the trainees. Apparently, with 160 kids attending, he thinks the group is a bit large. So, he announces he's going to cut that number down to a quarter with a single test. The kids are terrified that so many will be axed on day one. Lemaire makes it clear his word is law here. But hey, they can take any complaints to the head of the house. Shortly after, the stamina and focus test kicks off, with the kids running on a track. The instruction, run full tilt until Lemaire says stop. Wrath chimes in again, wondering why Rayon's hanging back instead of pushing forward. In Rayon's mind, this isn't a race, so there's no point in being faster, especially since the instructor's watching for grit and temperament, not just speed. He's sure the last one standing wins this test, and he's gonna see it through. The other instructors notice Warren and Runan are leading the pack, who they're sure have bright futures, being this good so young. Then they spot the infamous Rayon, and notice he can't seem to keep up, though it's impressive for a sick kid. The instructors predict Rayon will tap out soon, but Lemaire just watches intently. In Lemaire's mind, he's never seen a kid quite like Rayon. Until now. He couldn't gauge the continent's most powerful humans since their depths were beyond him, but he can see the potential in the other children. The only problem? He can't see any color for Rayon. That only happens when someone's potential is way beyond his ability to comprehend. The guys who ragged on Rayon before look back, joking that he won't last another 10 minutes. Meanwhile, Rayon's surprised all they're doing is running. He calls this times training? In his past life, they'd unleash starving beasts on them and they had to run for their lives. This is totally vanilla. Some time passes as the kids keep running. Lemaire is stunned that Rayon is still going, even though his stamina bottomed out a long time ago. Clearly, this is more than guts. The kid's running on fumes. That kind of focus, Lemaire reasons, is like a gritty level-up manhwa, possessed only by those who have faced death over and over. This just keeps getting better, and Lemaire is hooked. On the track, Warren sees Rayon is still hot on his heels, and he's wondering how that's even possible since the kid's sick. Turns out, he'd eavesdropped on his father's meeting with the guard, where he confirmed that Rayon is, in fact, sick. Annoyed, Warren decides to use aura to boost his speed and show everyone he's on another level. He blasts forward, leaving Runan and Rayon, the only two others still running, in the dust. To Rayon. Warren's acting childish next to the calmer Runan. Rayon opts not to race anyone, so as not to mess with his own pace, especially since this isn't a competition. Other students have already dropped out, wondering who the heck this Rayon kid is, and some are jealous. Having heard he's supposed to be a sick kid, Rayon overhears one of them ask if he ever actually gets tired. He almost laughs internally, as the chills make him feel like he's about to die. His heart and lungs, ready to collapse any second. He's only enduring the chill by using flame links to squeeze out stamina. When Wrath senses Rayon's fatigue from the cold, he tries to take advantage, demanding Rayon surrender his body so he can crush that little runt. Warren, seeing the spirit's maniacal grin, Rayon knows he's in deep trouble, and sure enough, Wrath blasts him with another cold attack. The attack hits like a truck, and Rayon feels hazy, but he has to act like nothing's wrong. Wrath is sure no human can take this, but Rayon fights to hang on, knowing the spirit will devour him for any weakness. Yet, against all odds, Rayon just keeps on running. Wrath gets enraged, wondering why his rage isn't working. Meanwhile, our boy feels he's about to die, unable to control his own body, his vision failing and his breath nearing its limit. And just as he's about to hit the wall, the instructor's voice cuts through the air, stopping the exercise. Warren glares at Rayon for not quitting, but Runan just watches, intrigued. Meanwhile, Wrath can't understand how Rayon handled the cold onslaught. But Rayon reminds him he said not to waste his time. Instead of stopping him, Wrath's attack actually helped his flame links strengthen, by letting him exert his body much more. Suddenly, a screen appears, like in a level-up manhwa, notifying Rayon he met the condition for intense movement past his constitution. Due to this, his strength, dexterity, and constitution get a small boost, which only infuriates Wrath more. After the kids all regroup, Lemaire commends everyone for their hard work and says he lied about cutting their number down to just 1/4 of the initial group. He says it's crazy to fail that many on the first day, and he never said this times was the big culling test. However, he states, if they treat their training like today, most will certainly fail, especially since he told them all to go at full speed, and none of them ran full speed to the end, except Warren. who sneakily used aura. La Mère tells them to take this seriously and follow orders, or they'll fail, though it won't be easy. From then on, they're temporary trainees until the exam in 6 months, where passing makes it official. At the end of 6 months, La Mère will also choose a valedictorian. Later on, La Mère heads into the woods to nap on a boulder, only to find Lord Glenn there. Lord Glenn asks how the test went, and is told that Warren and Runan have great potential, as expected, and the other children could be future pillars for House Ziggart. The only issue is that La Mère can't get a read on Rayon's case. La Mère recounts how the boy ran all the way to the end, even though he was completely out of stamina, and he confesses this is the second time it's happened, the first time being with Master Glenn. For La Mère, this situation is pure entertainment since he's been bored after his core was shredded. As the Lord leaves, La Mère says someone he can entrust his future to might come from this batch. Lord Glenn, on the other hand, insists it's a coincidence and the child can't become a swordsman, but La Mère isn't buying that. Meanwhile, Rayon decides to go to the training room right after they just finished such rigorous training, catching the attention of some boys who overhear him. Once he leaves, they argue that Rayon must have used a trick to last so long, since it's confirmed he's sick. One of them, from a branch family, is Glenn Ziggart, and he spreads a rumor that the elder gave our boy an elixir, which is how he won. The boys get furious that Rayon used an elixir to get the upper hand, so they decide to teach the smug brat a little lesson. Moments later, they slam Rayon against a tree, but he has no idea why they're suddenly attacking him. The boys let him know they're angry. An outcast from the main family has the nerve to be smug after using an elixir. The kids start cracking their knuckles, saying they just want to have a conversation with him. As usual, Wrath is furious he'd put up with this, wanting to crack their heads open. Before Wrath is done, Rayon, who's a total maniac on the inside, enjoys himself as he thrashes all 3 boys, leaving them a complete mess. The sight of the beatdown is so glorious that Wrath almost starts to blush. After the boys are on the ground begging for mercy, Rayon asks if Warren had put them up to this. He's told that Warren had nothing to do with it, which he struggles to believe, since he's certain that Warren hates his guts. Once he confirms this, he threatens the boys that something worse will happen if anyone hears about their chat or they approach him again. The boys scramble off in fear, just glad they survived. Meanwhile, La Mère, watching from behind a tree, is loving the show. It feels as if he was watching the young master Glenn all over again. This confirms his suspicion. Rayon is a hidden talent, like in a level-up Manhwa. When he gets back home, the system notifies Rayon he's met another condition by satisfying Wrath, and his dexterity has increased by 1. As usual, this just drives Wrath completely crazy, that he'd get bonus points just for pleasing him, and he protests that the system is nonsense. When Rayon reminds him he created the system, Wrath angrily replies, this is new to him, he's never had his system jacked before. After Wrath starts cussing and sees Rayon isn't paying him any mind, he decides to make him an offer. The choice is to get additional stat points by winning or accept some of his rage by losing, and all he has to do is rank first in the training exam, just as La Mère had proposed. After Rayon notices he can also score a random attribute by winning, Wrath explains that he'll get one of their attributes, with its rank nerfed to match his weak body. He's also informed the wrath he'd gained by losing is a tiny bit of spirit rage that's small now but can grow into an uncontrollable amount in the future. Because the spirit lays out all the terms up front, Rayon knows he's not lying and figures the rewards far outweigh the risk. It's definitely a poisoned apple, but it's clear his past life experience is more than enough to help him come in first. So, our boy accepts his offer. His acceptance causes a huge grin to spread on Wrath's face. He's sure his plan to slowly take over Rayon's body is working. Sometime later, the children start another exercise. They're clearly exhausted after running all morning and then holding a horse stance as instructed by La Mère. La Mère eggs them on, stating this stance is the foundation of all training schools and everyone has to do it. He tells the boys to hold the position until he says stop, then goes for a nap, daring them to quit. He reminds them they're the ones taking the final test, not him. Some of the students start complaining about the tiring exercises, wishing they could just start learning to use swords. After the exercise, Warren gathers some boys to practice sword techniques on their own, worried their swordsmanship might get rusty if they only do these basic exercises. Even though Wrath tries to push Rayon to go join the other boys to practice with the sword, Rayon doesn't think it'll do them any good to start learning swords at their current skill level. In his view, stamina and strength are what they need, not sword training. It's much worse for him because of the bitter frost curse. So, It's critical that he prioritizes the basics. While Rayon is busy grinding in the gym, he's being shadowed by Runan Slorn of the Vassal House, who's stunned. He's hitting heavier weights in just a few days, especially since she heard he was sick. His progress is like a real-life level-up manhwa, making her wonder if it's his unique stance. Her curiosity getting the best of her. She closes in without a word. Her intense stare finally gets Rayon's attention, and he tries asking what's up, but gets total silence. She's just mentally dissecting his sudden growth spurt. Watching him silently, she gets an idea, and walks past Rayon to another weight. She starts lifting, and her behavior freaks Rayon out, so he bails. He moves to another station, but Runan just keeps tailing him. While she's with him, she recalls catching a scent from Rayon moments ago that made her feel lighter, letting her crush her usual weight limit. Getting seriously creeped out, Rayon finally asks if she needs something, but she just says no. Eventually, Runan secretly vows to stick to Rayon like glue. Soon after, Warren and his cronies swagger into the gym, and they're ticked to see Runan hanging with the family outcast. To Warren, this repetitive, basic training is pointless. He's sure Rayon's just compensating for a weak body and will never match their superior physique. To prep for the test, he rallies his guys to practice swordsmanship so they don't get rusty. The boys then take off, and Warren's confident the exam will prove who's right. Later, a boy named Dorian politely asks Rayon to train with him. Noticing Runan's stalking, Dorian is not a Ziggart, but from an outside family. Rayon grudgingly lets him join in. A thrilled Dorian offers him a cookie. A wary Rayon tries to give it back, but then sees Runan basically drooling over his hands. She's giving him the ultimate puppy dog eyes, which freaks him out, so he caves and hands her the cookie. Over time, the trio works out together. They even stick together during races and begin to bond. Spring arrives, and training continues. It's been 6 months since basic training started, and Rayon's been running like his life is on the line. At this point, Rayon easily dusts everyone in races, except for Runan and Warren. A little more time flies by, and finally, exam day is here. Parents and guardians from everywhere arrive to see how their kids will do. They gather in a huge arena as Lemaire addresses them. In the crowd, Sylvia, Helen, and Lord Garon are spotted in the stands. Meanwhile, a gleeful Wrath pops up to remind Rayon of their bet. He's sure Rayon will lose and face their rage, since he couldn't beat Runan or Warren in training. Rayon just shrugs him off, saying, "Exams are a different ballgame, and you never know what's gonna happen." A bit later, Runan and Rayon find Dorian hiding, totally stressing about the exam results. Their bond has definitely grown, as she randomly offers him a cookie. Looking at his crew, our boy worries he's a total weirdo magnet. Meanwhile, Helen and Sylvia are thrilled their boy survived 6 months of training with his head high, and even made some friends. Soon, an announcement rings out. The head of the house has arrived to join the others and watch the show. This apparently isn't his usual thing, as everyone is shocked to see him at the event. Eventually, someone points out, this is the Lord's first time ever attending. When Lemaire shows his surprise at the Lord's presence, Master Glenn replies that this exam shapes the house's future, so the Lord must be there. Right after he arrives, Lemaire starts the trainee selection exam. But first, he has to reveal the exam's content, which he'd kept secret. Then, out of nowhere, and to the students' total shock, Lemaire unleashes a torrent of aura, telling them the test is to pierce his spiritual force. Lemaire explains fighters can't avoid spiritual force, and this exam tests their spirit's strength. Nearby, a guardian protests the kids barely know auras. Now this spiritual force test? Others join in, booing the instructor. Lemaire, tired of their nonsense, explains spiritual force isn't just about manifesting one's aura. True spiritual force is the soul's rank, molded by a warrior's deeds. Apparently, a true warrior needs no aura. As the guardians keep protesting, Lord Glenn interrupts, saying Lemaire is right because with or without an aura, every warrior develops a unique spiritual force according to the life they've lived. Depending on the training's intensity, even those without auras can develop strong spiritual force. The Lord's words silence them, so Lemaire continues the exams. The first person to be called upon is Runan. Lemaire says the spiritual force is beatable if she trained hard, and she passes if she pierces it. He smirks. Lemaire then unleashes a spiritual barrage that shocks her. The force hits hard, and she starts wincing. She's warned, using her aura is an automatic fail. Only her mental fortitude counts. Despite the pain and crushing spiritual tide, She manages to struggle through and grab Lemaire's hand, making him proud of her success. She almost collapses, so he has to hold her steady. He praises her hard work and tells her to stay on that path. Much to his horror, Dorian is called next for the exam, and he's sweating like he's seen a ghost. He's told to pierce the spiritual force with his mental strength, but Dorian doesn't seem to think he has any. Faced with failure, Dorian forces himself into the storm, but collapses midway. Meanwhile, Rayon notices the spiritual force for Dorian is different, wondering if Lemaire is adjusting the intensity for each kid's strength. Eventually, Dorian manages to grab onto Lemaire's feet, and the instructor congratulates him. He's also told to have more confidence. It's just a shame. Dorian then pukes all over the floor after the compliment. Next up is Warren Ziggart, facing the same test. The pressure is so intense, Warren doubts the other kids face this. He starts to shiver, realizing his feet are totally stuck. In response, Lemaire tells him that he possesses a more unique talent than anyone else here, but he and his followers wasted time on a sword technique they don't understand. Instead of building their foundation, he's also reminded he used his aura when things got tough, and he'll fail if he uses it now. Warren can't fail, picturing his father's coldness. Realizing his father will abandon him too if he fails this test, he charges forward like the hero of a level-up manhwa. He trips but grabs Lemaire's legs, and he passes. Lemaire adds that he's only 12, so he should stop acting mature and train at an age-appropriate level. The last person called is Round Ziggart. When he steps forward, a blinding spiritual force is thrown at him, almost making him lose his balance. But the weight of the spiritual force is so much stronger than the others endured that his mother and Helen grow worried. Even Lord Glenn is stunned by the spiritual pressure Lemaire is blasting at the kid. Meanwhile, Ryan's getting worried, wondering if this is actually his exam. Lemaire did this because he saw more potential in him than in Runan and Warren, and tells him to give it his best shot. The thing is, one's rank isn't decided by physical form, but by the vastness of one's soul. The best part is that Rayon doesn't only have Ziggart's soul, but also the spiritual force from his life as an assassin. And then, shocking Lemaire, our boy powers through the spiritual force, even grabbing the Lord's attention. As he gets inches away, Lemaire is certain this can't actually be happening. Unlike the other kids, Rayon doesn't trip, he just walks up to Lemaire and shoves him backward. It's a shocking sight, and the crowd gasps. Lemaire and the Lord are left totally speechless. Rayon just smiles and asks if he passed. The others find it impossible that our boy could just pierce through all that intense force. Even Karun is shocked the brat actually reached Lemaire. For a moment, Lemaire is frozen, wondering how a sick kid who can barely use his aura did all that. Finally, Lemaire asks Rayon just what he is, and Rayon bluntly replies that his name is Rayon, the same kid he's been watching for 6 months. Lemaire protests that he unleashed a spiritual force beyond his potential just to see him struggle, so it should have been impossible for him to break through. Rayon's shrug just ticks Lemaire off even more. Eventually, the time comes for Lemaire to announce the exam result and the top trainee as promised. Warren and his father tense up as Lemaire names Rayon the top trainee for this period. Sylvia and Helen just burst into tears hearing their Rayon came in first place. As the crowd chatters about the interesting results, Warren loudly tells Lemaire he won't accept these results because they're fabricated. His accusations catch Lemaire by surprise, who listens to him boast that he beats Rayon in strength, constitution, and potential. He then speculates Rayon must have used some kind of trick or spell, and some people start to agree, saying Rayon couldn't do it with the bitter frost curse and no aura. It's like a scene from a level-up manhwa. The protest gets so rowdy that even instructor Lemaire's integrity is questioned. Finally, Warren suggests a direct duel with Rayon to settle this. Lemaire notes that Warren is just desperate for the top-ranked title, and leaves it to Master Glenn to decide how to handle the allegations. The Lord decides to ask Rayon if he is willing to spar with Warren to prove his results are legitimate. Rayon tells the Lord he won't fight him, because the exam results are final, and there's no point if it doesn't benefit him. To settle it, the Lord suggests they spar for the title of top trainee, offering a bronze medal to Rayon if he wins. This gets Rayon's attention, as the gold, silver, and bronze medallions are given out by House Ziggart for achievements, and their rewards vary in value. A medallion from the Lord of the House means a pretty good reward. The new offer is enough to convince Rayon. The spar instructions are simple. It will be 1 round, and using weapons or auras is an automatic loss, so they can only use their physical bodies. The match starts, and Warren rushes in to punch Rayon's face, only for him to quickly dodge as the fist flies past his nose. Surprised he dodged it, Warren pivots into a kick, but Rayon blocks that one too. Warren declares it's a technique his father taught him, the charging tiger, and keeps attacking Rayon, who continues to block everything. Some people think Rayon can't retaliate, and Warren's just mad he's been challenged by a weaker kid from a branch family. He vows there's no way he'll give the top trainee title to Rayon, as the memory of his father abandoning his weak older brother flashes in his mind. All he's thinking as he fights is that his father is watching and he has to prove his worth. Meanwhile, Rayon keeps on blocking or dodging every single attack. Turns out Rayon wasn't just taking hits, he was studying the flow of Warren's fists and technique. And then, he gets it. Seeing Rayon stop, Warren thinks he's given up and moves in for the kill. But Rayon meets his punch with one of his own. To Warren's total shock, his fist is knocked back, and Rayon lands a gutbuster that sends spit flying. This sudden turnaround stuns the crowd, and Warren's dad. But what really blows everyone's mind, even Lord Glenn's, is Rayon using the charging tiger fist. Warren demands to know how he learned the move. And Rayon just says, "You showed me. I just copied it." The crowd starts buzzing, wondering how some kid just busted out the charging tiger fist, and if he secretly learned it. Meanwhile, Warren's still trying to breathe again, and Lemaire is convinced Rayon is the real deal. He's baffled how Rayon countered the move with a reverse spin, canceling its power just by watching it once. It's like something from a level-up manhwa. In Lemaire's eyes, this is the prodigy. Ziggart's been looking for someone who could rule the continent. After a tense pause, Rayon is declared the winner. The results were painfully obvious. Sylvia can't contain herself, rushing over to hug Rayon with tears in her eyes. Meanwhile, Runan's father gives her a proud hug too. Warren, though, just has his butler, as his own father turns his back on him, the one thing he feared most. Later that night, the silence in Warren's home is so thick you could cut it with a knife. Eventually, his father shatters the silence, asking if he forgot his one job, rank number 1, and lose to nobody. He asks if Warren's goal was to humiliate him by losing to that Slorn brat and a failure's kid. He reminds him he's already blown one chance. His only shot at redemption now is to take the top spot in the final graduation exam. As his father walks out, Warren knows he can't screw up this last chance if he wants to live like a true member of the main family. Rage boils up inside him, and he puts all the blame on Rayon. It made no sense. He'd worked so hard. How could he fall behind? Wandering around in a furious, desperate haze, he ends up back at the training center's gym. The gym's deserted after today's exam, and as Warren works out, he spots the student lockers nearby. Rayon's locker catches his eye. He figures a little peek won't hurt. He's not stealing. He's shocked to find about 10 pairs of shoes, all worn out in just 6 months. His mind flashes back to seeing Rayon, always in the gym, training relentlessly, while he was just swinging his sword for show or relaxing in his room. It hits Warren hard. Rayon was the one acting like a true Ziggart, not him. He miserably puts everything back and leaves. Sometime later, Wrath, still salty about losing the bet, complains he's never seen anyone like Rayon, and he's lived for countless years. He finally asks Rayon what the heck he is, but gets a non-answer. A system screen pops up, telling Rayon he's won Wrath's wager. All his stats increase by 2, and he's gained an attribute called the awareness of the snowflower. Wrath explains it's a godly attribute totally wasted on a puny mortal. The skill basically expands the range of your senses, but since it's only 1 star, it'll just boost Rayon's senses by 1%. Wrath then brags that he could use the system to crank his own senses up 10 times higher. The name Awareness of the Snowflower is a bit weird, though. So, he asks Wrath where that came from. Wrath thinks it's a magnificent name, but Rayon just realizes the spirit has awful taste, which only ticks Wrath off more. A little later, a message arrives from the main building. The Lord has summoned Rayon. This makes Sylvia super tense, worried something bad is about to happen to him, but the butler assures her there's no problem. In fact, Master Ziggart wants to award Rayon the bronze medal personally. Once in the throne room, Lord Glenn looks totally over it, but a deal's a deal, so he offers up the medallion. Rayon gets the medallion and is told he can trade it for a sweet item or favor. Our boy immediately cashes in his chip. He asks how to get his mom back to her rightful place, stunning the Lord. Glenn's like, "You mean, back in the main family?" He explains it's possible if he does something the whole house acknowledges, but that's way easier said than done. From Lord Glenn's perspective, getting the Ziggart house's respect is basically like trying to touch the moon, especially for a rookie like him. The challenge just amps Rayon up, so he thanks Glenn, gives back the medallion, and bounces. But before he leaves, the Lord notes, he just used his favor on a question, and still needs to claim his actual reward. Rayon recalls exactly what he needs right now. So, he asks for a cultivation technique, but gets told he'll learn one in basic training. Our boy, like a true level-up Manhwa hero, says he needs a greater aura cultivation technique than the basic stuff. He wants a technique worthy of the bronze medallion. The old shadow technique from his past life just won't cut it. He'll need more firepower to restore Sylvia's position and take Daryus' head. The Lord snaps his fingers, and a secret library appears. It reveals a massive archive of books. Much to Rayon's shock, shelves packed with hundreds of tomes suddenly tower over him. Lord Glenn says this is just a tiny piece of the Ziggart bookshelves, and to get his book, he just has to stand in the center and raise his hands. As he does what he's told, he hopes the new technique he gets will be better than the shadow technique. Suddenly, a book flies right off the shelf and lands in Rayon's hands. A beat-up old tome appears, and its choice stuns Lord Glenn and his butler. Lord Glenn is baffled how he got that specific book. Meanwhile, flames erupt from the book straight toward Rayon. Rayon wonders what this has to do with a cultivation technique. He opens a page, and a light blasts out, shocking him. The Lord is visibly struck by the fire. Suddenly, a vision plays out right in front of Rayon. In it, Lord Glenn gets a report from a guard that Sylvia has left the house, but he coldly tells the guard it doesn't concern him, the house's growth comes first. According to the vision, back when the Lord saw emotions as a luxury and only cared for the house's growth, he gained power, surpassing demons. However, he lost something precious in return. The vision shows Glenn later getting news that his son-in-law and granddaughter were ambushed by the Eton mask, and that they've been killed. The Lord begins to tremble. It seems in that moment, the Lord reclaimed his emotions, but there was nothing that could turn back the hands of time. He finally decided that regardless of the hate he'd get, he would give his all to protect the boy this time. This is all super confusing to Rayon, who wonders what kind of book this is. Then, it vanishes. The book's essence seems to pour right into Rayon's body. The Lord calls out, asking him what he just did. But Rayon says he has no idea. All he knows is he now has the content of the cultivation technique memorized. To check if he's for real, the Lord quizzes him on the technique's name, since he never actually read it. After a slight pause, Rayon says it's the Million Flames technique. A screen pops up, classic level-up Manhwa style, telling Rayon the Million Flames technique is burned into his memory and he's faced the flames of eternity. This seems to be the usual way techniques are imparted in the Ziggart library, and Lord Glenn confirms if Rayon remembers the content he received. When he confirms that he does, Lord Glenn informs him he has received a reward befitting the bronze medallion and he is excused. After Rayon left the hall, the butler stood there, stunned at how he absorbed the book's technique. That specific technique belonged to the founding lord. In the house's entire history, nobody had ever been able to read or receive House Ziggart's first master's technique. So, him getting the Million Flames was unthinkable. The butler grew worried for Lady Sylvia and Lord Rayon if anyone discovered he'd gotten such a skill. But Lord Glenn calmed his fears, assuring him no one knew about the technique. Meanwhile, Rayon was certain the book's content was now his. According to Lord Glenn, no one could use the technique as it was. It would have just rotted on a shelf if not for Rayon. So, it felt to him like times were changing. For Rayon, it made no sense why Lord Glenn gave him something so priceless, way more valuable than a silver or gold medallion. This was a skill from a level-up Manhwa, on par with the legendary Firelink. The only problem was, no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't gather his aura. Rayon knew he wouldn't grasp this right away, and Wrath noticed things weren't going his way. Acting totally out of character, Wrath advised him to try his best, since he'd found a great technique. It'd be a huge problem if he got interrupted and crippled. Wrath was right. But it was weird, he was definitely plotting something. The Golden Flames technique gathers mana and builds aura in your core. So, if Rayon got interrupted at a critical moment, his mana, circuits, or his core could get fried, leaving him an invalid. Worse, he was at huge risk because of the chill blocking his circuits. And seeing that smirk on Wrath's face, Rayon warned him not to even think about it, but his words meant nothing. He realized Wrath just wasn't listening. Wrath bluntly said he'd interfere just once during his training. Creeped out, Rayon argued his body would be useless if he became an invalid, but that didn't matter to Wrath. Because while a normal human couldn't recover, Wrath could just fix the body and use it. To Wrath, this was a golden opportunity he couldn't pass up. Rayon tried to play it cool, acting unfazed by it all. But Wrath told him to drop the act and tremble, because he'd never know when the attack would come. For the first time, Rayon saw Wrath as the enemy, not surprising. Since he was a demon, the incarnation of Wrath, he wouldn't miss a chance to devour his body. Before this, Rayon hadn't paid him much mind since he'd been behaving, but now he'd have to watch him like a hawk. Also, there was another pressing matter. A maid our boy noticed sneaking out every night for no good reason. Meanwhile, that maid, Judiel, Lord Karun's spy, was writing a report on how there was usually nothing on Rayon, except for his mumbling. But tonight, she finally had something juicy to report. Judiel was about to report on the insane technique he got for a bronze medallion, and the incredible mana flow she'd sensed. She knew the Palace of Warriors would find this info vital. But she hesitated. He was just a kid. How long did she have to keep writing these reports? As usual, she dropped the report in the river to float to her boss. A moment later, a cold blade pressed against her neck. A mysterious voice told her it was time to go back, threatening death if she so much as flinched. As sweat poured down her face, she wondered who it could be. The voice, the demeanor, the killing intent, it paralyzed her as she saw Rayon's reflection in the river. He told her he'd sensed someone keeping tabs on him since he got home, then asked, "Are you satisfied with what you've gathered?" How the heck did he know? The maid was positive she'd left zero trace while tailing him. Oh, it's crystal clear now. Rayon was just playing dumb this whole time. After prying her mouth open, Rayon shoves something in there that makes her gut churn. He then snags her report from the river, but since he can't read the message, it's obvious she used special paper that needs a trick to be read. He throws out a few guesses, watches her face, and nails it Moonlight, much to her absolute shock. Plus, her face twitches when he drops a few names and lands on Glenn Ziggart. So boom, he knows that's her boss. Judiel, who supposedly had years of spy training, is floored. He read her poker face when it was supposed to be a total blank. It finally hits her that thing he fed her, the one making her feel like an oven, is a rage worm. Cue the flashback. Lord Karun tasks Judiel with infiltrating the annex for intel on Rayon and Sylvia, promising a boatload of rewards. Back in the present, she asks if he actually fed her a rage worm. Rayon's shocked she even knows what that is. Meanwhile, all her attempts to yak it up are a total fail. Here's the deal. The rage worm is a 24/7 GPS tracker for location and emotions, and it causes a horribly painful end on the feeder's command. What's more, Rayon deduces she's a spy from the Palace of Warriors, planted in the annex 7 months ago, right after the discernment ceremony. A wave of pure terror washes over Judiel's face. This was definitely not the easy gig she signed up for. It was supposed to be a cakewalk, getting intel on a disabled kid and Sylvia. She never guessed she'd find a monster like something from a level-up manhwa at the annex. Terrified of dying, she offers to fake the whole report right now. But Rayon's not buying it. The truth would eventually get to Karun, just making her look incompetent. With a seriously creepy look, he informs her she's officially a double agent. Starting now. Her new gig, feed Karun intel he'd find out anyway and hide the important stuff he can't get. But in return, she has to spill every last secret about Lord Karun to Rayon. Judiel agrees instantly. The smile on Rayon's face looks like they're just chatting over tea. He tells her to bring some juicy info next time and then just bounces. As he's walking off, Wrath is totally unconvinced Rayon could have summoned a rage worm, since they've literally been attached at the hip. Turns out, Rayon never used a rage worm. He thinks they're disgusting. It was just a poison that causes some gnarly, temporary pain. So how'd he read her mind? Rayon just says, info comes from lots of places. And he's got his methods. It's so wild that even Wrath calls him a monster. As time goes on, Rayon went all in on creating his aura, and soon it was time to head back to the training grounds. Despite grinding non-stop to develop his aura, he didn't quite hit his goal before time ran out. Back at the training grounds, the small crowd reveals only about 42 kids actually passed, proving Liamir wasn't kidding about cutting the trainees down to a quarter. Runan quickly finds her way back to Rayon, and the two just stare at each other for a bit, which totally weirds Wrath out. Cut to a flashback at the Slurin family's main house. Runan's mom asked if Rayon helped with her training, and she said yes. Then Mom asked if she'd actually thanked Rayon for it. She admits she didn't, 'cause her dad said not to talk to boys first. Her mom then gives her the "it's polite to say thanks" lecture. Regardless of gender, back in the present, she finally thanks Rayon. catching him totally off guard. Wrath is clueless why she's acting so weird. And honestly, Rayon's drawing a blank too. And of course, Dorian shows up again. He immediately starts whining about how he was sure he was going to die as a temporary trainee. But now that they're official trainees, he apparently spent his entire break having nightmares about how much worse it's about to get. His nonstop chatter starts wearing on everyone. And he even praises how much better Rayon's score was than Warren's. Of course, he had no clue Warren was right behind him, so he shrieks and hits the dirt. Warren then approaches Rayon. And for a beat, everything goes dead quiet. Then, out of the blue, he bows and admits his behavior last week was awful, fully accepting his defeat. He then adds this doesn't mean he's quitting, promising to challenge him again, no matter what. Everyone is just stunned as Warren walks off. Rayon's surprised. A 13-year-old kid can own up to his mistakes. He's really living up to the Ziggart name. But instead of respect, Wrath just explodes with rage, demanding they thrash the insolent kid and pop his eyes out for not knowing his place. A moment later, Liamir appears and greets the kids. He congratulates them on officially becoming trainees and announces that real training starts now. They're told they'll be sticking to the basics, as usual, with a few new twists. As he's talking, a nearby door flies open and a weird girl storms onto the field. She immediately starts dropping curses way too big for her age, griping about the stuck door. Dorian completely freaks out, since he seems to know who she is. Liamir clarifies she's not one of his trainees, she actually flunked out of the last group. Apparently, this girl is joining their new batch, and her name is Marta Ziggart. She's got a seriously mean look on her face and quickly cuts Liamir off again, even though he was trying to introduce her as a nice girl. First on her list, calling out the top-ranked kid, because she can't stand someone weaker being above her. She offers to fight whatever brat snagged the top spot last time. This crazy girl demands a duel right here, right now. So, Rayon steps up, since she called for the best student. He doesn't look the part to her, but she decides to fight him anyway. Warren's voice pipes up from behind Marta, asking why she's acting so disgracefully. His words immediately earn him a confrontation from her. She gets right in his face, telling him to watch his mouth, or he might not survive, flapping his lips. He then asks if she's denying Rayon's legit win, one recognized by the chief instructor and Lord Ziggart. She fires back that she heard he threw a fit about it too, so he needs to let her have hers. When Warren publicly states he won't repeat his own pathetic behavior, it's like a scene from a level-up manhwa. Something has changed. A moment later, Runan steps between Marta and Rayon, telling her to beat it. In Marta's head, they're just one big happy family of losers. So, she decides to leave them alone and let them have their little moment. But she only turns around as a fake-out, and then executes her real plan, which is to lunge at Rayon when they're not looking. Before anyone can react, she goes for the takedown, but her attack is easily blocked and dodged, shocking her. Rayon responds with a devastating punch of his own, which she thankfully blocks, but the force still sends her flying backward. A satisfied smirk crosses Liamir's face, while Marta is just completely shocked by how fast Rayon reacted to her attack. Furious, she charges at Rayon again, but Liamir holds her back. It's also pretty wild how Liamir moved from his spot to hers in a blink. He then jokingly tells her it's not nice to ignore him. He knows they don't think much of him, but treating him like air hurts his feelings. Apparently, unlike Runan and Warren, Rayon hasn't even learned to use his aura yet. So, Liamir suggests they can fight all they want after he learns it, which finally gets Marta to back down. Once things settle, Wrath freaks out, demanding to know why Rayon let her off after she tried to attack him, suggesting he should have shredded her and frozen her for a millennium. Rayon reveals his plan is to avoid a fight for now, until she has something he wants. Then he'll bet the top trainee title for it. He tells Wrath to be patient, promising a much more satisfying outcome later. Later, the kids are training their stances and get a 10-minute break. Warren, who's all about the basics, realizes this whole thing isn't so easy. So far, he's nailed the second form, but he's having trouble with the third form, which is way more complicated. The crazy part is Rayon, on the other hand, learned all 7 forms in less than a month, while it took him a full month for the first 7. He's worried about them being in swordsmanship class together. But Warren isn't the only one feeling the pressure. So, he asks a struggling Marta how she's holding up. She just curses again, positive that Rayon is learning fist techniques for the very first time here, but is somehow picking them up crazy fast. Unlike Warren and Runan, Rayon received 0 advanced training, and the kicker is, he has the Frost Curse. Yet somehow he still trains all day. This realization just infuriates Marta, who tells herself she can't fall behind. Everywhere she's gone, she's always been praised for her electrifying talent. After being adopted by House Ziggart, she's always been the predator. She crushed those so-called prodigies from other families and laughed at their pathetic faces because she was the real deal. But now, she feels so nervous she can't stand it. At the end of the day, a worker commends Marta on her good work. She barely even looks at him, but he stops her, saying despite Rayon's progress, it's impossible for him to ever beat her. When she asks him what he means, he reminds her that Rayon has a critical weakness that he can never, ever overcome. While Rayon is practicing, some